Spurs fans, are you becoming tired of Ange's stubbornness? Because, look, 6 defeats, 3 draws in the last 12 games. They're 11th in the Premier League, 4 defeats in 5. Fans of Ange will say, well, we're only 6 points off 5th or 10 points off 4th. But his critics will point out that over a 56-game period, Antonio Conte effectively would have had 105 points, whereas Postecoglou has 89. Conte scored 112 goals, Postecoglou 113, but conceded just 64 to Ange's 87. So the stats are against Ange in a number of different zones. Now, he says he won't change, and he's fed up of answering questions about his style. He says, I'm not going to point out the obvious to you. If you can't see it, well, that's your problem. So is it for the long term, as he says, that he's setting his club up to perform more in this manner? And if he is doing that, is he explaining that long-term strategy well enough? And what is it?
That's a great question. What is it? The "are you not entertained" comment that's come out a few times. I was like, I don't know how many Spurs fans were entertained yesterday when it doesn't work and it's 1-0 and the same patterns of player trying to happen. And look, you can go through the team and there's a lot of nice footballers at Spurs.
They've got a lot of injuries, by the way, and if you go through their team yesterday, then 3 of their first choice back 4 and their goalkeeper are not available.
The goalkeeper one is obviously, it's difficult. He gets injured. There's nothing you can do about that. The 2 centre halves, they had my sympathy on that before he threw them both in. When he threw them both in against Chelsea, and then they both got injured against Chelsea, that's on you. That's on you as a manager. You've made that call. You've said, like, if they feel fit enough, I'm going to risk it without them training a full week's training, getting the high-speed runs, etc., etc. Especially with Mickey van der Ven. What's that? His 6th hamstring injury now. You can't just throw players like that in. So that argument for me went out the window when he made that decision. But you're a young team that does young things. I think that midfield's got worse since they got rid of. I know these players aren't great players, but Skip and Højbjerg, like these guys, you need to they at least hold the ball and set down. They're 2 at the minute, great athletes, go up and down the pitch, but there's no control. Well,
there's no protection for that.
There's never a control either.
I might be misunderstanding because sometimes he I can't work out what he's trying to tell me because he says. He will win a trophy in his second season. I always win a trophy in my second season. But then he says winning a trophy is not going to define me or the club. Only long-term success will. So what is long-term success? Because I can't work out whether or not he expects to set up Tottenham to win the league every single year and dominate English football. But there's no history of Tottenham doing that. And the very few clubs are able to do that. And no one does it without spending a hell of a lot of money. Or is it because he wants to change the DNA of the club and he wants to change the style so that, they've developed a new Tottenham Hotspur way. And because I can't work that out, I'm thinking, are the fan base asking those questions too? So when he keeps saying, I'm not going to answer questions about my style or I'm not going to change and all this kind of stuff, I want him to tell me why he's doing it. He just says it's for the long term. But I want to know what that long term's supposed to look like, right? Because I want to measure it over 2 or 3 years.
But if it's broad, you don't have to be held accountable.
But also, it's very arrogant to come out and say, I'm not answering those questions anymore, because we're not asking the questions for talkSPORT. We're not asking the questions for Sam Matterface and Troy Deeney. We're asking those questions on behalf of the Tottenham fans because they want to know what the long-term plan is. So for him to be so dismissive, I think is a really bad look. They've lost 9 games this season, Tottenham, in the Premier League. Only Southampton, Leicester and Wolves, who are all in a relegation dogfight, have lost more games. Surely the first job of any football manager, any footballer, if you can't win the game,
don't lose it.
Let's try and not lose it. He doesn't seem to care when they get beat.
Only drawn 2. 1-7.
Well, it's all or nothing.
Yeah, 1-7, drawn 2.
I think that's poor management.
When they drew a game at home recently, I think it was in October, and it was the first time they'd drawn a home game in 18 months.
Fulham, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just like if you said now all those players are free and available, what top team would they get into other than Mickey van der Ven?
You'd struggle.
And
is that on the manager or is that on Daniel Levy?
Exactly.
Again, I think Spurs fans, there's a split, isn't there? There are a lot of Tottenham fans who enjoy the way that Postecoglou plays. there are also a lot of Spurs fans who are becoming fed up with losing and being the laughingstock every week.
I think as well, when I just look solely to the game, and again, thought Forest were excellent, as you touched on in the opening read of it. But
Forest are a better team than Tottenham.
But the goal...
Forest are a better team than a lot of teams.
Yeah, but the goal was indicative of who and what Spurs' problems are. Udogie going that way, he's rapid.
Yeah.
He then going defensively, he got ran, and if you see before Elanga even shoots, he's looking at the linesman going, stick that flag up, help me. There's no accountability there at all.
Do you know what is fascinating when you look at Tottenham and you go back and watch the goals that they have conceded, and you see Udogie up high, Porro up high, the two centre-halves on the halfway line, and the two defensive midfield players almost on a similar line to those fullbacks that are operating high up.
So again, that exposes a lack of tactics.
There was a game against Liverpool last week you were at, and I was watching on TV from Old Trafford, and we were doing the show. And there was, I can't even remember which goal it was, but I did the little grid, but I mapped out where all the Spurs players were. They just turned the ball over in the Liverpool half of the field. Just like, it wasn't like a sustained attack where everyone
was
had
that
gone
the
forward.
Trent punt upfield and Dragusin comes up and loses a header on the halfway line?
No, I'm not sure that it was, but everyone was just so far forward too quickly, committed too quickly, and then they couldn't get back, so they were completely outnumbered going the other way.
They haven't got the pace.
And Liverpool had another chance. It's not just the fact that they haven't got the pace. It's the fact that you cannot commit that many bodies forward and not have protection. You cannot ask Archie Gray to play like Mickey van der Ven. You cannot ask Dragusin to be Christian Romero, because they're not the same players. Archie Gray's a midfield player by trade, a right
you
back
feel sorry
for
for him.
most of the time. He can't. It's not fair on him. Is it fair on him?
No, of course it's not. No,
is it fair on him?
Do you know the game that did it for me, Troy? And you did the game as well, Sam. Galatasaray away.
Yeah.
I think Galatasaray had 28 shots on goal. Osimhen could have scored 9.
Yeah.
And I thought that this is not a serious football manager. This is not a serious football team who actually want to win matches.
He is a serious football manager.
No,
that's not fair. He is a serious football manager. Of course he is. He spent his whole life dedicating himself to football. He's a serious football manager. He might be making mistakes.
He should be the ringmaster at a circus.
He might be underestimating the level of the Premier League, but of course he's a serious football manager. That is disrespectful. In fact, it's not disrespectful, Troy. It's salty. Hi, Kate.
Yeah, what a time to bring me in. Now, that is evidence of the saltiness right there.
Get him, Kate. Get him.
Kate.
Get him,
Kate.
Honestly, that is such a disrespectful thing to say, especially when Man United...
He's disrespecting the fan base by the way he sets the team up, Kate. He is.
To be fair, I do agree with you on that, Matt, on that point. I think his whole aura of Ange Postecoglou's changed. When he started, everyone was like, oh, this guy's so refreshing, Everyone's taking the mickey because he calls everyone mate, and you kind of felt like he got the fans. Now it comes across as incredibly arrogant. It was really rude to Fake of others, I thought, yesterday in a press conference. The sort of philosophy and the respect I had for him for not changing his philosophy is now becoming like really an essence of arrogance. This is the Premier League. He's a good manager, and I think if he went somewhere abroad, he'd do fantastically well. But in the Premier League, the whole of the Premier League must have a blueprint now of how you beat Tottenham. It's the same every week. But what worries me is if we sack him, I've no idea where we go from here. We're going to have, if we sacked him tomorrow, we're going to have Ryan Mason in charge for the rest of the season, which we've done 1,000 times, and that clearly doesn't work. And then from there, where do we go? I mean, I'm terrified they're going to go to someone like Gareth Southgate, and I think I might have to just give up watching football altogether.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.